Okay. Here we are. We are going to get into our next session as soon as I find it. I I deleted it. Sorry, JOMO. Yeah. Um, I, I'd like to welcome our most recent President's Award winner, Jonathan JOMO Layton, Layton Consulting, based in Metro Vancouver. I'm going to do a little pitch for you because I appreciate so much of what you do. Layton's been a FenCan member for 5 years, 5 or 6 years. Joined us not really knowing what we were doing, who we were really in depth, and started to come out to events like this. All of our AGMs, I think you've been to, and multiple other events. He's been an absolute, just a wealth of knowledge and support for Adrian and myself in what we do. Leaned on him on so many different occasions. He was integral in the work that we did with the City of Vancouver and the energy modeling guidelines, the development of the online size-specific calculator that we now have. What else have you done? You've done so many other great things. Lots of support, hats. I've been using that straw hat in the garden since I got it 3 years ago. It's awesome. Yeah, I love it. So yeah, I don't want to take up all your time, but I really, really want to acknowledge, so much great support from you and your organization. So thanks so much. Take it away.
Okay, everybody. I have already made this joke a few times, but maybe you should have waited to give me the award after this to see how this goes. But in all honesty, I got to thank my team, and because I couldn't be here without them and all their support. And so, just briefly on who we are, we kind of want to take on the name of being Canada's window and door engineering consultants. So our clients, our bread and butter, are manufacturers, assemblers, even people working on importing or dealers, to be their support, not coming down from the powers that be of engineers dictating, architects dictating what you have to do. And before I knew it was happening yesterday, I'd put this in here. So there's not a lot of us in this field, but we're thankful to be recognized for the work that we do in fenestration. And also just a little brief history and kind of where we are for 32 years. I'm obviously was quite younger when that happened, but my father started the company out of Vancouver through his basically need of the industry, started in curtain wall design. We've just kind of added more services as we went along. And then when he passed away suddenly in 2015, took over with some partners, and we decided that all we were going to do is window and glass, and windows and doors and glass. And we were just going to eat, sleep, and drink this. It's to the point that it annoys my family. I was in Paris with my wife once, and she was looking in this museum at the art, and I was opening and closing a tilt and turn window. So like I have problems, and I'm sorry. But yeah, we do all sorts of site testing, shop drawings, sign off, evaluations. We're also an NFRC certified simulation lab. So we're pretty deep in the trenches, and we've grown. So we have most of my thermal team is now in Lethbridge, in our Lethbridge office. And we have engineering staff in Calgary, some engineering staff, and one of my partners on the island, and the main office still there in the Lower Mainland. And then I actually recently moved to the interior, and so I'm first time announcing it. We're actually bringing a NAFS test wall to the interior of BC, really to help our clients with product evaluation, quality control, even products that don't necessarily need NAFs, but they keep being asked like, okay, well, how can I compare this? I'm like, just throw it in the test wall. Let's just check your stuff. Like, let's get over the hurdles that keep popping up. I'm so tired of that. And that thought kind of inspired this presentation. In fact, I had a lot of conversations with a lot of people, and this is essentially a culmination of a bunch of thoughts, and then all the slides I deleted that I thought I couldn't fit into the time limit. But it reminded me as I was going through this, something that Pat asked me, and I don't remember if this was just we were shooting the breeze or if we were doing a podcast, but You asked me once, has this industry just become overrun by consultants? And being a consultant myself, I probably was like, yeah, see ya. It's good. It's been fun. And, but it honestly has felt that way sometimes. In fact, working directly with manufacturers, we're essentially consultants at the end of the line. All these decisions have been made in the design process well before a project's asked to bid, or they receive the job and then they come to us. And it's like the possibilities of solutions are really restricted. Our hands are tied on what we can do because of all these other parties that have played a role in dictating what they want and how they want it. And I have said before, I hope it's like on my tombstone that windows are like a Rubik's cube. What I mean by that is, can anyone like solve one like super fast? Dang it, we're all losers. Yeah. I've been trying to do it, but man, when like a 10-year-old on YouTube is showing you how to do it, it's very emasculating. So anyways, if you solve one side at a time, if you solve red and then you flip and you decide to solve green, you'll go back to red and it's all messed up. There's no way to solve it except for trying to do it holistically all at once. And we have a dilemma in our industry, and I've kind of outlined a few things that I think are what they are, but it's not actually speaking. They're like symptoms of the root cause. One is that the specifications and codes, they're written without considering all the corresponding requirements. So I've received specification before, and then there's like this cute little line at the bottom that's like, meet all code requirements. I'm like, okay, which one do you not want? Because you want this and you want that and you want this, and they directly fight each other. If you want acoustics, your thermal is going to tank. Generally speaking, I should say, or the product you've selected and how it will perform. As I said before, early design decisions, they really restrict potential solutions. The authority having jurisdiction, so municipal authorities generally, or the RPR, the registered professional record, they struggle to keep up with all the standards. I can be sympathetic in the fact that there's so much they're supposed to be on top of, but I also really struggle when my client passes me an email from an RPR or from an architect saying, you're not compliant. And then I look up, they've taken a picture of whatever they're not compliant to, and I look it up and it's like 1996. I'm like, we're several code versions past what you've just sent out. And then this is just part of what has happened in the industry, is paperwork flood work, where we get all this testing done, we get all an engineer to write a letter, we have all this stuff to essentially prove to the city we've done enough, but we haven't really prepared a package or attacked it in the way that's like, this is the right way that you should receive this. In fact, if you're not getting it this way, you should be uncomfortable when you're seeing other projects. But all too often, it's just flood whoever's the approver with so much paperwork. Then this is where the heart of it is an overall misunderstanding of product conformance and project performance, and a lack of understanding regarding the code and regulatory hierarchy. So conformance and performance generally, I think, are understood as two entirely separate things. And I would say that is the correct, like, easy way to look at them. Like little kid gloves, I don't know, kindergarten, whatever. There's certain thresholds, if you want to put it, or metrics that you have to receive. It's a binary pass fail, whereas performance, you can look at how you could take an overall result and how your product might influence it, or a certain thing inside your product will change, and how you can achieve better than just this minimum and so we have standards and code and specification that is separate. But all too often, what I see at my level is this like mixing of the two in the specification or in the request. And it's like, we want it to conform and perform like that. And I'm like, okay, well, you have like you have one understanding, a basic understanding of the two, and not understanding how they connect. And unfortunately, what it really turns into is a lot of time and a lot of money wasted, which I think we all recognize we'd like to save more of that. So in my mind, and me just being a pragmatic person in general, I'm like, is there a strategic path for product and performance? One of the reasons I bring this up is actually just recently with a client. So we've been a sim lab for about 4.5 years. And for those who have gone through NFRC or renewals, every 5 years you have to renew. So we've worked with this particular client on new product, but they decided, hey, we're going to renew. We'll go with our old lab, all good, makes sense. It'll be cheaper. They have your stuff already. But because NFR has switched to Leaf, even though they're using the same models they already did, the quote was 10 times what they thought it was going to be. Now, we were the first lab, either us or West Lab, to submit Leaf. We jumped on board as soon as it got announced. Same with the CTA, commercial trendline approach. So there's a learning curve, and it hurts, and it sucked, and I made clients mad and lost money and all those things. So there is some penalizing, I guess you could say, when all of a sudden it's now enforced that you have to switch to this way. But 10 times is ridiculous to me. And I cannot understand how, when those that are providing solutions or are supposed to be providing solutions, honestly understand that there's no path for return on investment. Because every 5 years, they're just going to be like, chunk it out, give me a kidney, I'll take your firstborn, whatever it is. So there's these kind of concepts I have in my mind is, I think, misunderstood and not outlined properly, and in our codes, in how the architects, the RPRs, even the city officials don't understand certain things. The first one is that our industry has totally shifted away from standardization to customization. I mean, how many times have you had someone come and they say, hey, I want to do this? And I think most of the time we're like, sure. We'll almost say it first before we're like, let me check. It's just like, oh yeah, we'll figure it out. Problem is, if we have to meet all the other code requirements or well, let's just use NAFs. You change one thing, right? Even your thermal, all these different things. Hey, I want a particular kind of glass. Okay, well, it's not certified anymore. How do we move forward with that? Then we have codified metrics. What I mean by this, and I get to it later on, but we have a U value requirements, and then we're about to introduce solar heat gain requirements, and they're not different knobs. They are connected to each other. And I'm getting specification from people. I'm like, hey, if you no one can provide you this product. It does not exist. And if you could get this product, you would not want it. It will negatively affect the people, the end user, right? Pursuit is of 100% compliant products. It's not practicable, which is I learned is a real word, but essentially means it's not that it's not reasonable. It's that it's just not possible. And it could be simply because the cost is astronomical, but I honestly don't know if I've ever met a single manufacturer who is 100% compliant. And so I just feel like there is a path where we have to say, we're willing to come forward. Our industry is so good at jumping through hoops. Government puts things down, cities put stuff down, architects put stuff down, owner wants something particular, we say yes. It's time to say, my opinion, yes, and this is what you're receiving. We are taking the lead in that. So why is it complicated? This is not an exhaustive list, and maybe they should be in somewhere else, but I was just sitting there every few times I kind of do a presentation. I just think, okay, what are the things that have popped in my email that someone's frustrated with? And like I said, these things can fight each other, and yet you literally could be expected to provide a myriad of these on one project, one window. And I think about a wall assembly, which is, essentially the window is filling a hole in the wall, and they've got 3 requirements. Keep the out, keep the in, and hold up the floor, and then boom, we're done. Just the concept doesn't sink in to those that are requesting things, the depth of what a window has to do. And the biggest problem is there's no clearly defined hierarchy of importance. Nowhere in the code, nowhere in any guideline that I've been able to find. I think we all agree from a liability legal standpoint, none of us want to get sued, so in safety, I'll give as number 1. But you know, it almost would get to a point where you could have a computer program where it's like, okay, pick your window and then pick, okay, I want good thermal. Okay, this is now no longer an option. Like it would like gray out what you could pick. And I don't think that the powers that be would understand that. The other problem we have is I'd say it's an opportunity and a problem, but is how the Canadian regulatory hierarchy works. So basically, like the depth of liability, you could put it. So from the bottom up, the regulatory hierarchy is designed so that the lower levels comply with all the levels above, or thinking the other way, from the top down, each previous level essentially validates and enables the next level. So for acts, they're like the legal foundation that give the building code its authority, its teeth. Without the acts, there's no development of enforcement or building codes, as they actually provide power for the provinces to regulate energy performance or safety, other requirements of windows and doors. That said, there's actually very little technical details are ever included in the acts. In some ways, like the BC Energy Efficiency Act, it is actually a consumer protection act. So if you were to sell a product that was in, what do you call it? Breach of the act? Yeah, violation of the act. Like, you can go to jail. That's a criminal offense. Does that happen? I don't know. Yeah. Enforcement? I know. But that's what it is. So then the building codes are the core enforceable rules, they existing as both the minimum and mandatory requirements by which building officials determine approval through inspection. So this is basically where building officials sit. Building officials start speaking in on acts, it's actually not their spot, or speaking in on project specifications. It's not this is it. The building codes rely on reference standards to set a baseline by which products and projects can be judged. Then there's the reference standards, which are the technical backbone. Most compliance disputes are rooted at this level. So when we have a problem of, we want to make sure that this meets the standard, that this is where it is. And the reference standards provide the framework by which specification can require better than code minimums. Specification is where RPR, engineer, architect, registered professional of record, sets required performance. Usually it's better than minimum. So I just put an example, U value less than or equal to 1, NAFs, I want a better performing window, acoustic, OITC ratings, because we're next to a, train station or whatever it is. So things that aren't necessarily required by code, but are required for a specific project or a specific design that they're going for. And then we have guidelines. And the guidelines act as this outline of industry accepted standards. It's kind of like, this is all the things that industry knows we can do or we should do. We actually had a conversation once with, I forget his name, Cam something. Shook. No, is it Cam Shook on the island? Yeah, we're like, how do you make the decision to go from like 1.6 to 1.4 to 1.2 or whatever? He's like, once people start marketing that they can, like, when more and more people say they have a better and better window, then we can lower the value. I'm like, then stop marketing, everybody. We only make 2.0. Just shut up, But yeah, it's just kind of like how the industry's moving. So that's where these guidelines kind of come in. With supplementary guides, they can also be used to for like rebate programs, stuff like that. But surprisingly, these have actually become extremely influential and have effectively become mandatory in practice. So a little recap to make it super easy. Act statutes, force of law, broad authority, building codes, mandatory, minimum safety and performance, reference standards, mandatory when referenced. So they have to be referenced in that code and in the part of the code that it's referring to. Technical testing and methods are also part of that scope. Project specifications, that's contractually binding and has to meet a project-specific requirement. Then the guidelines are voluntary or advisory, best practice, clarification. However, they have become this role of and actually been set up, which I'll go over, as dictating. Yeah, I'll touch on the contractually binding. So, like Canadian regulatory hierarchy, okay, that's simple, goes up and down. But in practice, it's like all over the place. It does not function like that. And that makes it really complicated. And it's actually led to like the codes and standards being written with no clear line of liability. I might reword that. If I go back far enough to code standards, you can almost figure out who is the responsible party if something goes wrong. Like, it doesn't say like the concrete contractor's the one you go after because your concrete didn't meet it, but it's like, this is exactly what concrete is, or, here's your you must meet the span table, whatever it is for timber, whatever it is. But we have kind of these like, I don't want to say wishy-washy, but because so many guidelines have been written in, best practice, performance, advisory, there actually isn't a clear line of liability. And more lawsuits that we're being asked to come in and comment on, where they're like, I'm going to sue somebody. I'm like, the reality is that there is nobody did anything wrong except for not understanding the product that they were actually providing. Someone tried to give you a low U value and a high solar heat gain window. And now, yeah, I know why you're unhappy. So, yeah, that's one of the problems that we have with that. So I'm just going to give some examples of this happening. First one actually being how the FEN Canada calculator came about. So the guideline was held above the reference standards code. So in BCBC 2012, this little part here was added where it says you model to the applicable requirements of Part 8 in NECB's code, and then and the City of Vancouver Energy Modeling Guideline. It's in there. Okay, cool. But we have the NECB, the guideline's fine. It's in there. It's the best practice. It's trying to tell us what to do. But in 2018, this line was added. In case of conflict between the provisions of NECB code and the City of Vancouver Energy Modeling Guideline, the provisions of the City of Vancouver Energy Modeling Guideline shall govern. It became the dictating document. And then it totally sucked. Oh, it's so weird that it shows up like this. These cool slide transitions, you guys are missing out. It's your computer, Terry. Yeah. So this was terrible. It was terribly written. And I know we had Dave was on a call, you're on a call, Adrian was on a call, and we were like, which person do we have to string up? And I'm like really pacifist. Doesn't sound like I am, but I am. But like, I was just like, this is awful. Like, this needs, so they basically said, we don't want any of your certified numbers. We want it based on the actual area of the windows and not the standardized size. First of all, area and size are not synonyms, so that ticked me off. And then, or we're going to assume the worst case by using the highest window U value for all your fenestration specified on the project. But if you don't want my actual size, like, what am I getting? My tiniest, smallest casement window? And then you're like, hey, everything applies over everything? Like, it was just so poorly written. And yet there was a whole bunch of consultants who were using City of Vancouver's Excel spreadsheet and just like, make it work. That's work. That's what you got to do. You got to. And I don't remember whose project it was, but there was something like a $600,000 package that was on the line. That was yours? Yeah. And it wasn't even in Vancouver, right? Like, this just came out of left. Yeah. Yeah, just came out of left field. And they're like, well, code says that dictates, so you got to do it. Yeah. Yeah. So we buried the guy in Okanagan, just so you know. But anyways, FenCan came together and we really put a ton of effort into and basically told the city as an industry, you've messed up. We recognize that this is in code already, but we need to fix this. And so first thing we did was make sure that the reference standards were in the actual City of Vancouver Energy Modeling Guideline, matched to what the code is referencing in the first place. And then we outlined an actual path forward. And we did kind of build it off. VBBL used to have path A, B, and C. So we built it off that same kind of concept. Path A is the labels. that's based on the standardized size. So it's certified. If you got a certified product and your product gets below, if Vancouver wanted 1.4 at the time or 1.22, go ahead, put it in. Don't worry about it. Doesn't matter what size it is, just whatever. It's based on the NFRC size. There are some known issues. It's the standardized size and not the actual building. There's no comprehensive CSA certified product directory. So validating that that's actually true is really hard. There was a time when the city would just send me reports from people and be like, hey, does this look right? And I'm like, I don't even know where to start. Like, it's just some guy typed it up on his computer and then scribbled a signature. So, and then self-labeling, not inherently bad, but it allows for bad actors. And like, here is an example. I don't, like, does anyone see if you can tell if this is bad? Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. The U values don't convert the same way. Yeah. How could you have a 0.28 at a 1.3 and a 0.28 at a 1.2? So simply by the depth of thermal stuff that I do, in half an hour, I actually found, probably less, there's 12 things that are totally fraudulent. The CPD number doesn't actually exist. It's not how you would write a CPD number. Lab test that this is not a rated product. Like this particular client's been pulled. The U value at 1.3 actually doesn't meet one Energy Star. So like you can't even get that if you had it. Like it just goes on and on and on of how this is. So it's just, and to make it better, if you pull back, as you can see, the labels kind of look torn. There's actually another label behind it that was a different number. So it's just frustrating so the city's like, we're sunsetting this. It doesn't work. So we get it. Method C, this is kind of what we've had to do, or what we were doing, especially for part 3 projects, where we're doing a thermal analysis on every project. So when a project gets awarded, client would send me their shop drawings, tell me what glass they're having. If I hadn't thermal modeled it before, it could actually be quite expensive. But I basically built, with our team, we built, an internal database, I could say, of my clients' stuff. So we just kind of churn and burn these, but they've already awarded the job. They're like bidding, and it's like, okay, I have to meet this. And sometimes it's like, you can't. It will not happen. So it's expensive. It's a time waste. There's a bunch of issues with that. And so that's what brought about the method B of the FenCan calculator. If no one has seen it, I'm telling you now, go to the website, go over to the scroll down in the far right corner. Technical Center will come down. There is the actual thermal calculator at the top. There's a user guide. And then I will try to get it done. I wanted to have it done before the AGM, but I have an actual video walking through doing one to show you as well. And then the third is just call me and we'll figure it out. So what the actual tool looks like is, here's your first user input. You set it up. You put your name of the project, where the address is. You can put in 5 images. You can put in the manufacturers. You can put as many manufacturers you need, dealers, whatever it is, all the information, because what you're trying to build is this report at the end. And what we've basically said is, not some projects are just going to need path C. Like if it's an imported product that has nothing certified, because you rely on the certified values that you're scaling with math that's approved by NFRC to get a full project report. Yeah, if you have a product that's not certified, maybe I have to model that one, or maybe I have to model that particular project. But for 85% of projects, if you're kind of on the ball, you can provide data saying, hey, this is what it is. You can double check. I know it's kind of small, but you can double check what my product data is, what my CPD or listing number is. Like, go up to the labels on my product, see the order sheet. You can check the same thing. You put it in geometry, your quantity, and then it gives you an overall U value. You can even split it by elevation. So if there's concerns, large south facing on a lake or on the ocean, high solar heat gain, you're like, hey, we should have different glass here, approach us differently on how we're going to do it. So that's cool. Very, very cool. I'm excited to have more of that. Example 2, project specifications, so superseding reference standards. So first off the bat, client sent me this, and this was such a weird, like a passive house suitable window. My question back was, is this a passive house certified product, or is this passive house marketed project or project or marketed? And he's like, I think it's the second one. And as you can see, this is like November of 2025. This is well past that. I think any architect should understand that if you're using passive house numbers, the project itself has to be certified actually by PHI, a PHI certifier. And then in the rest of it, as a references, it's like, okay, well, we got NAFs in there, we got thermal in there, so they're fine. Like, yeah, sure, it's a weird wording, but they're fine. But then written after this, design requirements, sure, I've got the NAFs in there, but then I got all these EN standards in there. And I sent a message to the architect, hey, I want to help this out, but this is a certified product for North America. The project's in North America. You have to use North American values. What's going on here? And he says, no, we're modeling it all to passive house. Well, code says you can't. So what do you want to do? And the client is contractually obligated to provide this. And contractual obligation actually speaks a lot on this too. So third is a misaligned expectation from standards and specification. So here's a project where we did the air water test, and the window they sold was a CW PG80 window. Like, that's what was purchased. And then they're like, okay, I don't remember why they wanted the water test, but it ended up having one. So we go and we calculate, what are the performance requirements? Well, it didn't need to be CW. Didn't have to hit a PG80. So we send the report, everything passed, no problem. And then we get this back. This is a cutout of this, and they highlighted everything. And they say the performance requirements are as noted in product submittal, which differs from this document. I was like, no. ASTM E1105, standard for water penetration of installed product. ASTM E783, test method for measuring air leakage. These are not NAFs validation tests. You want to get that value? Go stick it into a test wall. That is not what you're doing here, nor is it what any of the ASTM standards should be providing you. So here's my response. These should only be considered field performance requirements if there is an existing project specification. So if you put in the project specification, it has to meet this at testing, then we will make sure we test that level. But if it doesn't, oh man, I'm calculating to what the manufacturer has to hit. That is the requirement of the minimum. If my client decides he wants to do more because he's so confident in his window, we're actually having that right now on a project in Fernie. They want to do higher, fine, we'll do that. But the project requirement is different than what the lab or test result will be. And then this is actually a little snippet from a presentation I watched with Coltec Windows. And I may be wrong if anyone's from Halifax, so you can correct me. I'm trying to understand it. So essentially, their label had one, but Halifax itself has like a minimum test standard. So it's easy. Like, it's easy to know what you need tested. The whole city has that. So then it calls the question site test quality. This is like obviously not in Canada, but I thought it was super funny because I have actually seen stuff like this. So we've actually helped a lot of clients actually not pay for testing with one question. Hey, can you send us your calibration reports? Yeah, we just bought the equipment. Yeah, it's actually discouraging to see the level of professionalism in the testing community. Now, there are some exceptional, but the fact that the barrier of entry is Adrian and I going to Home Depot and putting something together for $400 and then putting a label on our truck is frustrating. The other thing is, how was the test pressure being determined? We quoted on a job against a competitor and they had a way higher test pressure. And so the owner of the building thought, well, you should use them because it's going to be, a better test. And I said, well, why don't you ask them why they are using that test pressure? And they said, well, that's just our standard. Like, has nothing, like, it's not applicable to any window whatsoever. You're just making up. Was the manufacturer contractually obligated, like I talked to a certain test pressure? And they're all alternative quality tests. There's actually a whole bunch. I just put a few in here. But why have you decided to do an alternative test? I actually was asked a very honest guy why he did AMA 501.2 rather than the ASTM E1105. And he said, I find more failures with AMA 501.2. I also buried him in the Okanagan. No, I'm just kidding. So I was very frustrated because I said, you're taking a standardized test that is specifically designed for this, for the proof of the manufacturer, and you're leveraging another test to, go into a vulnerability that exists. And there are. The integration point between the window and the wall is honestly where 95% of the failures that we've ever seen are. It's an installation issue, not a warranty issue. There are times when the installation has been the manufacturer's fault. There's times when the installation has been, I would say the rough openings, that's contributing really, really poorly. And then even times when there's some hardware, the way that it all connects and how the water can get in and get out, that's kind of the thing. But I have yet to see this like extreme high failure rate that I keep hearing about when clients of mine are on a major townhouse project, and it's like fail one, do tests more, and that's like 16 tests in, and I still haven't passed. I'm like, how is this happening? And finding out the gauges are way over what they should be, and all sorts of stuff. So some other concerns just to keep in mind. Like I said before, the proposed solar heat gain maximums are decoupled from the U factor when they actually are directly tied. So I'm actually in support in a way of recognizing that, I like that they're saying we should have a maximum of solar heat gains, because solar heat gain definitely got taken to like this free energy place that was a monster, and still to this day deal with. Lawsuits are involved. Not us, because okay, like one was. No, I'm just kidding. But like it's like at the end of the day, people are just not happy because it's so hot. And like, sure, I get free energy in January and February, but like we had one project, brought in the second professionals, where they got to the point that they put like this mirrored film on the outside of their window just to try and like alleviate. It was just so hot, and they melted their neighbor's pool furniture. So like, just poor understanding of design. This one livable space must not exceed 26 degrees. As far as I know, is that just BC? Just BC for right now. So this specifically followed up after we had a heat dome in 2018. None of y'all know, so 2018, and it's like 46 people died in their homes. A lot of them elderly or had health issues. And so this has now become a codified. Okay, but what if the room, especially like a condo where you have this like one big exposed windows, what if it gets to 26.1? What if someone does die and then they're like, well, it must have been hotter, yeah? Like I said, 619. None of them knew Adrian Cheese. So thank you. Like I know for a fact windows are going to be pointed out. And yet it could be like, I don't know where the heat stack is for the whole building, and how the roof assembly and the wall assembly and all that's insulated, but it's easy to point the blame at windows. And so there's no clear line of liability. Then on the National Building Code, and this, like I could do a whole presentation on this alone, but the reliance on NAFs is the only qualifying path for NAFs certifiable products within the NBC. So in British Columbia, we have the ability to use Part 5 for engineering sign-off, evaluation, kind of all the stuff we've done. We have done for all sorts of products, both residential, commercial. Yet in the NBC, it's been written that if it is a NAF certifiable product, that's the only path forward. Okay, but here's the problem. NAF doesn't consider installation, both structural integration around the opening, safety glass requirements, guard resistance requirements, seismic loads, lateral drift requirements, egress requirements, says thermal expansion, like all these other things we do. There is some, I would say, secondary checks that can exist because of how NAF's set up, but it's not a focused, calculated, evaluated specific thing. And secondly, based on how this is written, this essentially means that even in a Part 3 commercial building, if you have your product has NAFs and the size that you've tested does not exceed that, you could put it in with no engineers, according to the NBC. Because it's a NAFs product and it's approved by NAFs, done. That is insane. Yeah, whoever wrote that sleeps way better than I do, that's for sure. So, yeah. Yeah. So where do we go from here? Because I want to find a pragmatic. I actually don't know. I'm working with my clients right now, looking at all the things that we can do for LEAF, for instance, and trying to group things and say, okay, yeah, you can certify everything in the sun, but why don't we certify what you're actually going to sell? And then we can have it all set up for when things come, we can have in our back pocket doing a path C method, but I've already got it all modeled. I'm already set up for it. I don't know how to make all of the crossover work, but I do know that we're at a very unique time where government has a listening ear to our industry. Big thanks to Adrian and Terry and others as well, who have just put Stefan, I mean, the list can go endless, right? Who have put so much effort into connecting at that level and saying, like, we want to take a lead. At the AGM in Kananaskis, there was announced that we're going to have CSA CPD because NFRC has one, CSA doesn't. Anyone know what stage that's at? Yeah? What stage is that, Adrian?
Whether or not we want it to continue. And our candidates essentially put up their hand and said, we stopped it because it is potentially going to add complexity to your market. And when you're ready to come back and have that conversation, let us know what you would like to see. So it's on us.
Or they stopped it because we said, what are you going to do to enforce this?
Yeah.
And they realized that they can't.
Yeah. And then I don't know, those who went down the route of getting EPDs, the government's also realized, oh, hey, we can't compare EPDs, and this is from that standard, and this is from there. We're all over the place. So essentially, I'm presenting two options that our industry wants to be involved in. One, both of them actually I'm directly involved with, my team's involved in, and I want feedback. Do we want to do this? It will add complexity, but if it adds solutions that allow me to do both compliance and performance, holy cow, conformance and performance, because that sounds cooler. Like, let's do it. So we just started building a database. Just took product that we already had, we listed it all, and then we're like, hey, let's upload 6,418 glass, kind of the most used glass that we've seen. And we essentially can build any model. We have the product. Obviously, none of this is certified. There's all these like, you must have this information, everything here. But we can get an overall value that can be uploaded directly into the FenCan tool. You could just upload it. It's in there. There you go with that. Second part of this is we could add any additional information that is kind of hidden when there's the NFRC CPD. I know there's a background manufacturer that you can get to. It's difficult, but it could have your U-factor frame, U-factor edge, EPD, like so much information is available in these things that is generated during these evaluations that at the end of the day just does not show up like when you get your reports. In my mind, we're still at paperwork flood work, not actually moving forward with anything. And then utilize Leaf. So NFRC, this is one of the most frustrating things. Leaf is actually awesome. You can essentially, you break down your system into like trend lines, but then you have this line where as long as it's a y equals mx plus b equation. So you have all your knowns, the x is your center of glass value. You literally could put in your center of glass value, whatever it is, and it would give you an overall number. But NFRC is not certifying the trend line. They're still doing per product. So I still have to have thousands of items in there rather than the trend line itself. We don't have to do that. We can do it different. The math works. And then secondary, and Adrian, you may want to talk on this a little bit, but Fenestration has been working with the NRC to start a Canadian-focused data set collection or life cycle inventory from A1 to A3. And so we've partnered with Build Neutral, and this is where we're going to need help. Oh, it's going to come line by line. Oh, brutal. Okay, so it's your computer, Terry. All right, so the raw materials and components. I need manufacturers who are like, yes, I'm going to spend some time with you and generate this information. It's going to be not a fun time, but hey, we'll go do something fun after. I don't know, but it will help our industry. We'll go to Okanagan. I'll show you the places where, yeah.
It's one of the few times the government's actually going to pay us to do this process. We are not having to pay for it as manufacturers. So that's the opportunity, is that if we have to do embodied carbon calculations and you're involved in the process, you will get the data after we are done with that.
Yeah.
That will help decrease your consulting cost on the LCA work that eventually you would do for your product.
Yeah, essentially, I feel that EPDs can get to a place that it's knowns and unknowns. Like you plop in your knowns, and hey, we can't know this. This is aluminum is a commodity on the market. Okay, what's the world average? Bloop. And like the complication and the artisan deliverables that are out there that are just costing a fortune. I am like, I don't see how we could justify a return on investment. And then all of a sudden they talk about HPDs. I'm like, oh my gosh, everyone's getting buried in Okanagan. So yeah, we're going to have to, we're going to have to talk. I need specific material types. If your suppliers already have EPDs, send those. Your bill materials, some logistics between where you pick up your raw material and where you actually manufacture, load utilization. So part of this is industry standards that we're using, but even it's how efficient you can be with your transport. I know some people have shared trucks, their own trucks, whatever it may be, plant manufacturing, figuring out utilities between the amount of your plant that's actually manufacturing and that is office space, waste, packaging. So there's a lot of communication, and we're actually going to build, if the industry wants, a platform that you can go in and input the information and help you see, yeah, this is, I know what I need, and here you go. And yeah, it just will need to be recent information, and then it needs to be properly allocated, which is going on to Build Neutral to build this LCI. So that's it for me. I hope you feel the passion, because I love this industry, and I like most of you, so it's good. Yeah.
So the President's Award winner ran a bit long on me, but that's okay. Do you guys have a timeline on the LCI project?
Yeah, so I'm expecting within the next, I guess, 2 weeks or so to get the contract back from NRC so we can get it started. From there, there's still going to be a contract negotiation that needs to be done.
Yeah.
So I would guess by July, August is probably a reasonable start expectation. But until we've gone through full contract, I've done enough multifamily. I don't pretend to sit there.
And do you have an estimate of how many manufacturers you want to engage with?
Yeah, so currently, and this was the volunteer email that went back out, I guess 9 months ago on this topic, just to get kind of manufacturer feedback on who was interested. There was like 43 feedback items.
Okay, good.
So it was really positive. Obviously, I'm gonna have to come back, and once people understand the scale of what they're gonna need, maybe they'll back off. But for now, yeah, I think we've got a pretty good data set opportunity. But anybody that is still interested that wants to participate in this, reach out. I'd love to make sure you're on my list when I start reaching out to everybody and saying, hey, it's time.
So we ran a bit long. Questions for Jonathan?
Oh, that was awesome.
No, quarter after.
I can't go more than 45 minutes without talking. So that's why I'm desperate. I got the microphone. It's awesome. Yeah, so there's a real problem out there with garbage specifications in the architectural specs, and nobody knows where they came from, and they're full of copy and paste errors.
Yeah, we've been talking with Canadian Construction Specifications Canada,
Yeah.
and we're planning to expand that
Yeah,
relationship.
that really
Yeah,
needs to be
because
fixed.
we've made it clear that we're concerned with what we see.
I've never seen a specification that was straight up and proper all the way through. Last week, I had a big conversation. The specification said CW PG55 with a design pressure of 40.
Perfect. Shouldn't be a problem at all. Oh, and the NAFs that you showed was NAFs 08, by the way.
Oh
Yeah.
that made me laugh.
Only 3 versions.
I forgot that. That made me laugh too. 2025 must mean NAFs 08. They actually were like, do I need to go backwards in testing? Yeah.
So, and then the other, you were talking about liability, legal liability. Some of these standards really tie us up. For example, at the beginning of NAFs, it says, no one shall claim partial conformance with this standard. And then NAV 17, it's impossible to have full conformance for custom configurations. So if you get into a dispute with a customer and they want all new windows for some reason, get a lawyer, and the lawyer will say, I'm going to say those windows are non-code compliant because they're non-NAFs compliant, and your butt is in a sling, just like that.
Yeah, I'll just say something real quick to that, because as I've gotten to talk with all of you over the last 2 years, I've kind of gotten to see the different problems of the industry. I have kind of my top 3, and at the top was float glass. It's like there is a fundamental break in our supply chain, and the next was install. And last was our bloody standards. Like, really, how all of this has been integrated in isn't working. Like, the truth is, as a whole, we aren't following the things that we've created in order to establish structure. And so there's so much cleanup work here, and frankly, a lot of untying of the framework. Like that, Terry and I were joking a couple days ago. It's, at the code side, you know what I really want? 2030 code to just stop, and for us to clean up the language so we can all understand it. Man, what a change that would be. It's almost like we kind of almost need to look at our industry the same way. It's like we're in a place where it's time to simplify this so that we can all actually follow it. But
Well, I mean, I think everything that's created has best interest at heart. It's when stuff gets stacked, it becomes like a snowball effect.
stacks on stacks on stacks.
And then the other challenge I have,
Correct.
even when City of Vancouver asked them, you've wrote this EMG and here's your requirements. Who's the law? Like, who's going to be the policeman? Because it can't be the code anymore, and it can't be the reference documents anymore. Is it you guys? No, it's not us. Like,
Well, and that, Terry and I have been working really hard to build the relationships with the code officials across the country so that we can, both participate by providing input on what's not working for you guys. And then we took the stance after doing a survey with the membership. I guess it was not last year, but the Windor the year before, where you guys have asked more enforcement. It's what we need in our industry to make sure it is level. So, the way we handle it is we act as education for the code officials on what's reasonable. So, Vancouver and BC have been sending us windows that the inspectors are looking at and going, this doesn't make sense to us. And we're evaluating, providing that feedback. And, some of the consequences of that are, there are windows that are getting ripped out of buildings again. It's been a while. Probably time. Like, if we've got things that are fraudulent, that's kind of where our industry has a responsibility to put our foot down and say, absolutely not. We're not tolerating this. And unfortunately, the import pressures are getting worse, and they're going to continue. So
Yeah,
we'll
we've
continue.
had a number of those situations where info has been sent to us, and we look at it, and I mean there was another one separate from that one. It was not in Vancouver. NFRC logoed energy performance labels with no CPD number, so that makes it curious right away. And these particular folks were not at all listed with NFRC And so we sicked NFRC on them. They have cease and desist orders on them now. So that's going on, and we're getting this feedback increasingly from AHJs and trying to support their understanding and to support them in how to deal with it. So it's a challenge. There's no question.
But I'll say the roadmap that I can see, and I'm sorry, I know we're over time, but the roadmap on this one for us as an industry, because it is such a tangled mess of web, I think a lot of our conversations over the next year, 2 years is going to be a lot about how do you guys want us to untangle this? There's a lot of different ways we could kind of unpack this piece. Obviously, specifications, cleaning that up, that's a huge piece. There's no reason the default should be 08 NAFs. That's wrong, and we could fix that fairly easily. But you know, there's a lot of different aspects to this thing. Is Patrick's one number concept will allude to?
No, not in this conversation. Not in
Leaving
this
it alone.
conversation.
All right.
We're long.
Well,
We're long on time.
I just
So
want to say that
last comment.
I did joke about marrying people. I'm actually a big softie. I cry in cars every time. But if you tell anyone, I will bury you in Okanagan. So
All right. Thanks very much, JOMO. Appreciate it. So